844-580-WDBO. George giving us a call from Orlando. Go ahead, George.
Hey, Larry, little the scoop.
Hey, buddy. Happy New Year, George.
Same to you. Listen, when you get home tonight, take you a shot of rum with some honey and lemon. All your troubles will be over.
Well, we'll give that a whirl, too. But we've been trying it with ginger, honey, and lemon. You know, that's what I've been giving we've been trying that so far. I don't think I've got any rum. Will tequila work?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're Dr. George, so I figured, you would know. Yeah. I mean, can you substitute tequila for rum? I don't know. I mean, shoot. I'm game. I'm game. I'll give it a whirl, see what happens anyway. I'll let you know how it turns out. How's that?
Yeah. Hey, Larry, what makes that 4.6 of my Blue Baby such a good engine?
Oh, you're going to love this. See, Ford started doing those modular engines, making the 4.6s back in, I believe it was 1992. Do you know where where that whole thing came from? You remember we used to have the 302 and the 50 motors, years ago. And then they came out with that 4.6. And I'm going, well, why in the world do they want to mess with success? 50 Mustangs and the 302 engines have been such good motors, for Ford, other than them using those plastic timing gears at one time and plugging the oil sumps up. But it was a good engine, so they wanted to do this modular 4.6 engine, which eventually turned into the 5.4, and all those motors are great engines. But all of that come from basically a Mercedes platform. They pretty much duplicated the Mercedes engine that was made from the late 70s all the way through the 80s. And I mean, these are engines that, people were putting 500,000 miles on. Well, Ford did it one better than Mercedes. See, Mercedes only had one problem with their V8s back in that period of time. They had an aluminum block. And what would happen is the same thing that happened to Cadillac with their North Star engines by using an aluminum block. The head bolts over a period of time would pull the threads, the aluminum threads in the block itself. Well, Ford didn't bother making an aluminum block. They used a cast steel block. So you didn't have that particular problem. What do you wind up with is an engine that you can put an easy 500,000 miles on. And that's exactly what they wound up building. And then, of course, from 92 on up, they went from a single cam to the a dual overhead cam, and they made the motor, and then they started using the cam phasers for variable cam timing. So the engine has been progressing ever since they manufactured it, pretty much. But they started off with an excellent platform, and I always wondered, there was never ever anything ever said about Ford stealing the whole entire idea and the platform that Mercedes has already been testing for years before they actually built it. There had to have been some underhanded deal making going on, because, I mean, literally, those engines are almost exactly the same. I mean, there's very little difference between how one's made versus the other. As far as them being when they were primitive and they first started building them. But it's pretty much an entire duplicate of the older Mercedes motors. And that's the reason that those hold up in those Marquis and Crown Vics and the old town cars. That's the reason they held up as well as they did. You got one that'll outlast me and you both, George. We can take pride in that. And it being an American-made product. Imagine that. Thanks for your call, brother.
Thank you so much, George. Talk about holding up. Jim's got a question about a 1930 Ford, which I am almost 100% sure is the oldest car that I've ever screened on this show. So it's a new day for new things, talking about cars in Costa Rica and 100-year-old Fords. Coming up next